This is a video about the near perfection of the original Candyman and why this is another video from me about the near perfection of the original Candyman, the one produced in 1992, and in it I am looking to show you the film in a new light, bring out some of the complexities, things you have probably never thought of before when you've looked at Candyman. I'm also going to lay the groundwork for why the Jordan Peele produced reboot that's coming out in July, it's not going to be good. Anyway, but before that, I want to quickly ask you to make my Corona quarantine a little bit brighter by subscribing. Every time one of you subscribes, I get a new chicken. Ah, thanks whoever that was. Cheers. Less surreally, my channel is tiny and every new subscriber is an absolute delight. I get a morale boost and it's motivation to make more videos. Now onto the actual content. So like I said, Candyman for me is near perfection. One part of that is how complex and balanced a film it is. So to show you that, I want us to envisage a scenario. Okay, it's a weird one, sure. I'm going to take a diverse group of friends to the cinema and we're going to watch Candyman. My friends are, like I said, diverse. You might think of them like this, or you might think of them like this. As you can see, my friends do not agree on much. So if we go out to watch a movie, there is less time for them to argue. Smooth move, right? And because the film is Candyman, naturally, they love it. And weirdly, they all agreed with its message. Huh? These people with very different mindsets saw Candyman in very different ways. And they can do that because Candyman is complex, balanced, and thematically rich. What I want to do is show you how people of very different mindset can look at Candyman and see something deep, something meaningful, something that both works with but also challenges their worldview. Now naturally, I'm only speaking through avatars here and therefore I can't be held accountable for any political opinion that is expressed here. None of them are my view, of course. I call this the ContraPoints maneuver. Let's look at this first group of people. Let's call this the Jordan Peele group. How do you think they understood Candyman? Why did they love it?
Spoilers incoming. Spoilers incoming.
So for this group, sort of socially minded, social justice advocates, very interventionist type people, for them, Candyman shows an America divided, a world of high-rise condos and ghetto projects. It shows people like middle-class white Helen are in one world and Marie is in another. Helen gets a position of power, gets money for talking theories. Marie is a single mother who appears to work in a grocery store of some kind. Marie has to work in this dangerous world. It shows her abandoned by a state that only ever causes trouble for her and the rest of Cabrini Green.
Helen, this is sick. This isn't one of your fairy tales. A woman got killed here. Jeez.
That's not the half of it. Now that's Cabrini Green, not that you'd recognize it today.
Yeah, no kidding. I won't even drive past there. Heard a kid got shot there the other day.
Every day. Every day.
It shows crumbling infrastructure, graffiti, drug dealing, filth. That's what Cabrini Green residents get. Deprivation, insecurity, inequality. They see well-presented people and they assume police are visiting because, after all, the state only comes to harass and arrest them, not help.
How'd you catch him?
We swept the place. We start from the top floor and work our way down. That way you can flush them all out.
This shocks Helen, like she is not used to seeing this world, and it's unsparing. So where else would Candyman be remembered? Candyman's remembered here because he knows their struggle. And let's get to it. Candyman was literally a slave, put in his place and maimed and murdered for trying to break out of it. Candyman is literally the ghost of slavery, and it haunts Cabrini Green. This is rich symbolism.
We're not cops. We're from the university.
Well, you don't belong here, lady.
Candyman shows you the struggle never finished, the reparations were never paid, and the systemic inequality from Candyman's time is still alive. Of course Candyman is here.
You know, it's okay to talk to me, Jake. Because I'm not a cop. So nobody's gonna get in trouble.
I can't say nothing. or Candyman'll get me.
It's literally the structure of the building that allowed Ruthie Jean to be killed. The walls weren't solid, there was a way through built in. Literally, it was a structural problem. It's a systemic problem. Ruthie Jean was killed with the help of the system, remembered only by her neighbours and friends. This isn't something that Helen's world ever heard about. Helen's entitlement and privilege allows her to research and theorise about Cabrini Green without real risk. When she gets a taste of life and hardship in Cabrini Green, it's an exception, and the system backs her up. Her meddling and attempting to kill the memory of Candyman and what he represents causes the problems. But through that, she does learn some of the reality of Cabrini Green, of that America. A lot of the film is about the symbol of Helen learning the struggle of a completely different community. And in point of fact, the future of that community embodied in this baby is what's really at stake. Again, the symbolism is rich. It takes Helen symbolically giving up her privilege, literally giving up her middle-class life, job, relationship, well, her life, to save the future of Cabrini Green's community. It's very clear through the reality depicted and the symbolism what Candyman's about. Now, if I ask my other group of friends, better represented by Thomas Sowell, Jesse Lee Peterson, Coleman Hughes, people who, in Thomas Sowell's terminology, have the tragic vision, not the vision of the anointed. Now, if I ask my other group of friends what they thought of the film, they would tell you that they like Candyman because Candyman shows an America divided, a world of high-rise condos and ghetto projects. People like middle-class Helen are in one, and Marie is in another. What separates them? Well, Helen and Bernadette investigate and they see a failed community. Now, where Helen and Bernadette are professionals and they work in society, is setting up a family. She's proud of the condo she bought, but in Cabrini Green she doesn't find any of this. What Helen sees is crumbling infrastructure, graffiti, drug dealing, filth. The gangs are so bad that people have to make their own protection. They see well-presented people and assume police are visiting, and they immediately try to intimidate them. Later, they'll escalate into familiar violence. It's a community that's sealed itself off with violence, intimidation and threat. Gangs are making darn sure that everyone can see who owns Cabrini Green.
Look, you're not being very smart. My colleagues know where I am and they're expecting me back. Now let me go!
I hear you looking for Candyman, bitch. Well, you found him.
Now in Cabrini Green, order is gone. Family is gone. Marie's a single mother and she's setting her child up for a cycle of poverty. We learn nothing of Jake's parents. He's clearly a good kid, but the gangs make it pretty clear where his future lies, and he knows where the power is in Cabrini Green. This was a community that was state created and state funded, and no one there feels a connection to it. Nothing was earned. The facility was vandalized to claim the territory instead of earning it. Why would you look after it? The responsibility is the state's. This is a tragic vision in action. So why is Candyman remembered here? Well, Candyman was a slave and he is literally the ghost of slavery, and it haunts Cabrini Green. And the way it does that is important. Now the gang use his name. They choose to embody Candyman to maintain their stranglehold of the estate. They keep the whole community down. The symbolism is subtle but rich. Now Helen didn't form the gang, didn't graffiti every surface going, didn't break up the relationships. In fact, Helen's condo and the projects of Cabrini Green are literally, structurally the same as we are told.
You spot it?
No?
That's not Cabrini Green. That's this building, Lincoln Village. My apartment was built as a housing project.
No.
Yeah.
Now it's also relevant for a plot point, but symbolically, that is powerful. These buildings, these communities are structurally the same, but it's values and behavior and people that make the difference. And by challenging the belief in Candyman and in him keeping everyone down, that is dangerous.
I hear you looking for Candyman, bitch. Well, you found him.
You know, it's okay to talk to me, Jake. Because I'm not a cop. So nobody's gonna get in trouble.
I can't say nothing. Or Candyman'll get me.
As Thomas Sowell or Larry Elder would tell you, that is a dangerous position to take. In fact, the future of that community, embodied in Marie's baby, that's what's really at stake. To save the community, Helen has to kill Candyman and what he represents. This is symbolically stopping everyone from centering Candyman and not personal agency. That's the only way to save the future of Cabrini Green. In Candyman, these friends, they see the products of a failed benevolence, failed state intervention. They see a breakdown in everything that gives a community strength and value, and by comparison, a clear path to improvement. But also an essential part is leaving behind an old narrative and taking up a new one. That's why they loved Candyman.
We ain't all like them assholes downstairs, you know?
The whole point of this was to show that for each of these very different viewpoints, there's evidence that supports them, and that there's evidence in the film that challenges them. And that is because the film is balanced and rich and complex. It's based off a real life estate where they really did have trouble. They had to include the actual gang that runs the estate in the film because otherwise there was no way they would be allowed to film there. They were working there under threat and having to basically work with the gang who was the real authority in Cabrini Green. The fact that you can look at Candyman and get support and challenge to both these viewpoints shows how rich, complex and thematically deep Candyman is. And that's what I want from the Jordan Peele reboot too, but the thing is, I do not think we will get it. My point in doing this video is to show you the original Candyman and show you a couple of ways of looking at it, maybe ways that you didn't think of before. And you can contrast that with Jordan Peele's other work. Now I can only speak of Get Out and Us, but looking at those films, what multiple readings are there? Every reviewer mentions the social messaging because it's absolutely undeniable. But what I want to ask you is it a complex message? Is there anything that challenges it and gives it an alternate reading? Is there anything that challenges that main, very obvious plot distorting narrative? And the answer is no. Jordan Peele has one message that he wants to push and he's gonna do it. Maybe the director and the other writers will temper him. I would love that, but I don't hold out hope. Now I also know that Get Out and Us are very popular in the horror community. I am expecting downvotes. Those are the breaks, so be it. But I'd like to hear from you if you think that's an unfair take. Do you think Jordan Peele is going to deliver a complex Candyman, or is it going to be another sermon? And most of all, what I would like to hear is other interpretations of Candyman. I would love it if you left a comment and told me what you took away from the film. That would be fantastic. I think that's all from me. Please subscribe and comment, and likes are super appreciated because this will get downvoted. Thanks y'all. Tschüss.
Durango 95 purred away real horror show.